Today's daf is daf Dalet. Below roy shein kavanos lahazik roy keren shekavanos lahazik, and we could differentiate between two ovos nezikin shein and keren in that in the case of shein there's no kavan lahazik, and therefore we cannot derive from shein anything about keren. So if the Torah would have just said shein, we would not be able to derive keren because keren is kavanos lahazik. Now, the Gemara is going to reject that logic immediately, but just to give a little bit of teeth to this havamina, I would say the following: that if the animal is belligerent, that's the animal's own initiative, so to speak. And if you want to blame the animal, then sue the animal for damages. But in the case of shein, you can't blame the animal. The animal's just eating normally. It's not some sort of belligerent act, and therefore you should have been chayav in shmira. But the Gemara rejects it. V'lav kal v'chomer. Uma shein she'ein kavanos lahazik chayav keren shekavanos lahazik lo kol shkeins. How much more so do you have to protect your animal if it's kavanos lahazik and it's a mazik? Then shmiros an alecha v'chav b'tashlumin. Itzrich. Salka daitichamina. If I only had shein, I would say midi dahavi eved v'oma. And the Torah had to write keren, and we could not derive keren from shein because we would have compared keren to eved v'oma. Eved v'oma, lav afagav the kavanos lahazik. You own an eved, and the eved deliberately went out and damaged someone. You don't have to pay. The adon is potu v'tashlumin on the nizkei eved. And what would be the reason for that? It's because the kavanah of the eved was kavanos lahazik. And perhaps that would support our logic of before, that if the eved, or in our case, the animal is kavanos lahazik, then go sue the animal. I mean, I can't be responsible for the animal deciding to make itself into a mazik. And therefore, chinami lo shna. Here too, I cannot be mechayiv him on keren because keren is kavanos lahazik, like eved and Oma. So the Gemara says in the name of Rav Ashi, no, you got it wrong. The whole script is mistaken here. Eved v Oma, for sure you should be chayiv for, because it's kal v'chomer, because it's kavanos lahazik. But Eved v Oma, like time of obviously, there's a whole nother reason why the Adon is potter for the nizakin that were implemented and instituted and initiated by the Eved v Oma. And that is very often there's going to be some sort of friction or altercation between the Adon and the Eved, and as a result, the Eved, wants to take revenge against this Adon. And if you're going to tell me that anytime he's mazik, then the bill is sent over to the Adon and the Adon has to pay compensation, then you've exposed the Adon to a very difficult situation in which on a daily basis, he's going to have to be paying for the nizakin of the Eved V'Yama. But again, if we go back to the fundamentals, then for sure the Adon should be chayav for his ownership over a mazik, in this case over Eved V'Yama, because they had kavanosam lahazik. So kavanosam lahazik is adrabah, is a reason to be mechayev in general, but we alleviated the Adon of his responsibility in the case of Eved V'Oma only because Sheva Yaknitenu V'Nimtza V'Yadlik Yidusha Haver, etc. Ella says in Gemara, Prich Hochi. You want to know why we cannot learn one mazik from the other? And the answer is because Lo Roi Keren Shekavanos Lahazik Kiroi Kirai Hashem Shekavanos Lahazik. Maybe the Torah is saying that Yechayev Lahazik, the Yechayev L'Shalim, only because you're the owner of a mazik, that because of its belligerent nature and its desire to damage, it went out and damaged, but that has nothing to do with shein. And on the contrary, on the opposite end of the spectrum, lo roi shein, if we only had shein, then we would say, why you chayav to pay nezika for shein, sheyesh hano lezeko, and that's not similar to the case kiroi keren she'ein hano lezeko. So we cannot derive keren from shein because shein is yesh hano lezeko. We cannot derive shein from keren because keren is kavanos lahaz. So now the Gemara goes back to the statement of Rabbi Yehuda, according to Shmuel, that shar in our Mishnah, which is the opening line of the Ovos Nezikin, is a reference to Keren and Mav. Is a reference to Keren and Mav, is a reference to Shein. For Regel Mai, where did Regel get lost? It's not mentioned in our Mishnah. And the Gemara answers Shairet. This is called Tada Vashir. He left out Regel. So the Gemara asks, what kind of business is this? Why was Regel left out? And the Gemara answers, no, there's a hint and an allusion to Regel in the words of the Mishnah later on at Daf Tesam and Beis Kshehizik Chav Hamazik. And why did the Mishnah have to add that? It must be a ribui, lasuye Regel, and that's coming to include Regel. Frek the Gemara v'lisnei behedja. Why? What's the logic of the Mishnah to separate Regel and, pardon the pun, kick out Regel and put it into the next Mishnah? It makes no sense. Elamar Rava, Tana Shola Raglo Mavalisheno. Rava now rejects the interpretation of Rabbi Yehuda regarding how to learn the word shar in our Mishnah according to Shmuel, and Rava substitutes a nupshat that the word shar actually includes regel, and the word mave includes shino, which is shein. V'hachi kamar. And here's how we're going to explain the Mishnah as to why we can't learn one from the other. Lo roya regel shezeko matzui. The reason why the Torah says that Yechai for regel is because it's matzui. When the animal walks, it stops on whatever's on the ground, whatever's growing. Kiroya shein is zaka matzui. Shein is somewhat unusual to some extent. In comparison to regel, it's considered ein as zeko matzui, because the animal could only damage when it has access to some sort of food and it eats and consumes the food. Velore shein, and if we only had shein, we cannot derive regel from shein, because in the case of shein, yesh hanol zeko, kiroya regel she'ein hanol zeko. So it makes more sense to be machai of the bailan because he benefits through the hezek, and in this case through the shein of the animal gets a free dinner, so to speak. Whereas for Karen Mai, where's Karen in our Mishnah? Because now you've told me that according to Shmuel, the word shar includes both regel and shein, leaving out Karen. So Karen got kicked out. Shaire? What does that mean? Why would the Mishnah leave out Karen? And the Gemara answers again a ribui. When it says in the Mishnah later on at Daftes Kshehizik Chav Hamazik, why did the Mishnah add that? Lasuye Karen. Frek the Gemara again, the same questions we saw before. Listening behavior. Why wasn't Karen included explicitly in our Mishnah? And the Gemara answers, our Mishnah is single-mindedly focused on those Ovos Nezika that are muad from the get-go. And that does not include Karen, because Karen, for the first three Negichos, is not a muad, it's a short time, it only pays Chatzi Nezek. Ushmol my time aloma karav. After we explained in the previous Gemara that from the Psukim itself we cannot prove the meaning of the word mave, it could be shein, it could be adam, equally so. Why did Shmuel prefer to interpret the word mave as shein and rejected the interpretation of Rav that mave is adam? Amal Shmuel will say, Isa adam. You cannot tell me that mave means adam because haktani v'seifa. In the Mishnah, at the end of the first parak on Daf Tes Bava with Beis, it says Shar Amud v'Shar Mazik v'Shar Nizak ve'ha Adam. So the Mishnah explicitly mentions Adam. Why would the Mishnah mention Adam twice? Once here in our Mishnah, and again a second time in the Mishnah of ve'ha Adam. So the Gemara asks for listening Bereisha. Okay, let's grant you, Shmuel, that Adam is included in the Ovos Nezik, and it's mentioned later on in the Mishnah Daf Tesva. But why? Why wasn't it mentioned here in our Mishnah? The subject of our Mishnah is Mavan Amazik, but not Adam Amazik. Frek the Gemara of Rav Nami Aktari Adam B'Seifa. I don't get it. According to Rav, Mave in our Mishnah at the beginning of the Masechet means Adam, and later on we have the word Adam explicitly listed as a mazik on Daf Tes Vav and Beis. The Mishnah later on at Daf Tes Vav is mentioning and enumerating those Nezikin that are Mu'adim. And Adam fits perfectly into that mold because an Adam is Mu'ad Mitchilasa. Now the Gemara asks, okay, according to Rav, what do we do with the law arrays? My law array, how do Rav say that if we only had Shar, we would know Mav? If we only had Bava, we would know Shar. Mav is Adam. And the Gemara says, Hachi Kamma, Lo Roi Shar, Shekei Mishal Mesakofer. We have a Chumrah in Shar that if a man owns a Shar and it kills another human being, then the owner of the Shar has to pay Kofer. And this is not the case, Kiroi Adam She'eno Mishal Mesakofer. And why doesn't Adam pay Kofer if he kills somebody? And the answer is, L'chora, if he was a shogeg, then he goes to your miklat, and he doesn't pay kofer. And if he was a mazid, then we apply the principle of kim levi the rabbi. And in truth, he might be potter even in case of shogeg because of chayve misa shogeg. The lo raya adam. Now you're saying, well, if you're chayav for adam who's potter and kofer, then kolshkein you should be chayav for shor. And the answer is no, there's a chumrah in Adam that doesn't apply to Shar. Shekain chayv arvet dvarim, the chobel b'chaver is chayv not just the nezek, but also tzar ripush havas and poshes. Kiroya shoshein bo arva dvarim, and he only pays for nezek. So therefore, if the Torah had only told me that Adam is chayav, we would not be able to derive Karen, which means Shar, from Adam. Adam has a special chumrah that he pays arva dvarim. Gemara now asks how could the Mishnah possibly say that the lowest common denominator of all the Nezikin is Darkan Lahazik? That's not true. Rav is saying that the Mishnah of Shar is referring to Nizke Shar, including Keren. And when it comes to Keren, which is Darkan, which is Kavanosa Lahazik, that's not what you call Darkan Lahazik. And the Gemara answers b'muad. Our Mishnah is addressing the case of a shor muad. So the Gemara says, all right, so it's a shor muad. So what? V'muad darka lahazik? And the Gemara says, yeah, that's exactly it. Kevan di ayid urchehu. After the third negicha, it becomes a shor muad. And we assume that it's darka lahazik. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the Gemara means here. Is the Gemara saying that the Maisa Negicha, Pam Achari Pam, third Pam, that changes the nature, the attributes of the shor, the essence of the shor, makes it into a belligerent shor? Or is the Gemara saying that by birth it was born as a belligerent shor, that's Orche, but in order to prove that and demonstrate it, we need three Negichas. Gemara asks another kasha. According to Rav, that Mav is Adam Darka Lahazik? Again, if he's an Amaleki or a Chamasnik, it's Darka Lahazik. B'yoshin. When a man goes to sleep, then he rolls over in his bed and he breaks kalim if there are kalim there. And that's Gemara is going to ask back and forth. Yoshan Darka Lahazik, and the answer is yes. Kevan de Chayef Uposhit Orchehu, it's Darka Lahazik. So a man stretches and he rolls and so forth and so on until he destroys Kalim. The Gemara asks Akasha Ushmirasan Olecha. What does that mean? Shmirasan Olecha. You have to watch someone else. What does that mean? We're talking about Mava. We're talking about Adam Amazik going to Rav. Adam Shmiras Gufa Olav. Somebody has the responsibility of being shomer the goof of someone else. And the Gemara, as we'll soon see, is going to swing around and say that Shmiras Guf Olav means he has to watch his own goof. But right now, according to you, that you hold that Mav is not Adam, then let's ask a kasha. Tani, it says in the Brisa Karna, and this is the Brisa of one of the Amoraim named Karna. The Brisa was brought down by Karna. There are 4 of us Nezikin, and one of them is Adam. But it says that what does Shmiras Alecha mean? Adam Shmiras Gufa Olav Ela Kita Amar Le Rabbi Avol Litana Tni Adam Shmiras Gufa Olav. Change the text of the Brisa, and instead of it reading Ushmiras Alecha, which means that you have to watch it, it should read Shmiras Gufo Olav. He has to watch himself.